Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we discuss the purpose of the Space Wolves Canis Helix and the red first of the Angels. Just why did the Emperor put these in their gene seed? General spoiler warning to begin, as we will be discussing events from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, one of the most pivotal moments in 40k history was of course the unveiling of the new Primaris Marines. Belisarius Caul's secret mission at the behest of Rabute Guilliman to improve upon the Emperor's design of the Adeptus Astartes. And of course, as we know, Belisarius was successful with this. But it's safe to say the level of trust he was given by Guilliman was really quite astounding, because Belisarius was given the Sancprimus Portum, an artifact that contained the genetic material of all 20 Primarchs. Yep, that's right, all 20. And we'll discuss just what Caul could have also been up to another time. But for now, what we do know is he used this to experiment upon the gene seed for each of the loyal legions, under strict instructions from Guilliman to leave the traitor material alone. Now, we've had a few teases that maybe he didn't just stop there, but for the most part we can say with the assumption that he did listen to Guilliman. We have no concrete proof otherwise. And so, one of the most interesting conclusions that Caul came to after his investigations into the gene seed was that the Emperor absolutely intended the flaws within the particular gene seeds, namely the Canis Helix of the Wolves and the red first of the Blood Angels. Now, I know this can cause a little confusion regarding the red first, as it's thought to originate at the heresy battle of Cygnus Prime. However, in truth, it was present within the Legion from the very beginning, and the events of Cygnus Prime just exaggerated the situation to a greater degree. Whether or not the Emperor intended it to ever reach that height, well, that's open for debate. I for one really don't think so. However, back on topic, Caul coming to this conclusion was extremely interesting, and he made it very clear to Guilliman the Emperor intended the legions to be this way. It was the only possible conclusion, and with that in mind he will not and cannot tamper with the Emperor's intended designs. So the question we have now is, what was the Emperor's intentions in putting these flaws in these two particular legions? It's a real intriguing question. As I've referred to before, I believe Russ and the Wolves were always intended to perform the executioner role, the warning axe edge against any heresy and corruption. And with this in mind, I feel the Canis Helix plays a big part in this role. The spirit of the beast inside the Mark of Russ instills within the Legion overwhelms their nature, and only the strongest characters can contain it to become the heroes of myth. This beast within gives the Space Wolves a strong anti-corruption and chaos instinct. The beast instinctively and effectively guarding their spirits and roaring against any challenge of approach. And I do think you can kind of see this through the Wolves' recruiting trials, their final tests passing through the gates of Morkai, facing the temptations of the ruinous powers. Only then, once passing that, do they receive the Canis Helix. Fighting against the temptations of the ruinous powers seems to be a strong part of the makeup of the Space Wolves. And with their runic nature, as we have seen during the cleansing of Prospero, the wolves have a very anti-psychic powers nature, all tying in very well to their executioner role. Now, why a wolf? Well, let's be real, it's got to match the existing tabletop, so we'll just have to excuse the Emperor's creative desires on this one. Now for the red first, however. Now this is much more curious. It would make sense, in knowing the Emperor's end goal to fight against chaos, for the red first to perform the same anti-chaos function as the Canis Helix. And it is definitely possible. The constant fight against the bloodlust forges a strength of character that's hard for any other legion to match. Though making this a mechanism to fight chaos or resist corruption, we have to admit does seem a little more unlikely. Giving a bloodline a desire to drink blood, I wouldn't say that's the easiest anti-chaos idea, but it could definitely work. The obvious advantage it gives Sanguinius and his sons in battle really must be the driving factor. At least that's the way I tend to think. It really seems most likely to me that the first was intended to make the Blood Angels the elite fighting force they've become, specializing in that close quarters assault. Let's keep in mind the first wasn't always necessarily going to elevate to the levels it has. Like I said, Cygnus Prime saw to that. And when you combine it with the fact that Sanguinius was always intended to be around, meaning his aura and presence would keep the Red First in line, and not having the added burden of the Black Rage to contend with, it really does make a lot more sense why the Emperor would go this route. And let's remember, Angron and his sons were never intended for the mindless, rage-fueled berserkers they became. They were actually much more cultured and civilized before the madness of the nails. So adding this to the conundrum, it really would leave the Blood Angels as the sole owners of this assault domain of war. Yes, there are other legions that can excel in this theatre, but I think we all have to admit the Blood Angels own it. And again, taking all this into account, to me it really makes the Emperor's logic a little more understandable. These two flaws, as they are called, are much more a unique evolution to perform a very specific role amongst the legions, as at the end of the day all legions do. Russ and his Space Wolves, the warning axe edge against traitors, and Sanguinius and his angels, the elite assault force, who would go to a place no other legion could match. Refined on the outside, the fury within. 2 Primarchs, 2 legions, 2 brothers, so alike, yet so different. The Emperor's fire and ice. The question, as always guys, is what do you think? Do you agree with me that maybe these were the most likely reasons for the Emperor to include these flaws in their gene seed? Or perhaps do you have another idea in mind? Just why did the Emperor go down this route? Why not make all legions as standard as, say, the Ultramarines? Why did he create a whole different cast of characters? And in doing so, did he make a mistake? Or was it for the best? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And I'll see you next week as Mortarion Week begins.